Treason, one of the worst crimes an American can commit. This is the story of the highest-ranking CIA officer ever to be turned by the Russians, and how he was eventually brought to justice. After the dramatic arrest of Aldrich Ames, a CIA case officer working for the KGB in 1994, President Bill Clinton ordered for an investigation to be conducted to find out if there were any other CIA officers secretly working for the Russians, or any other government. This job was given to FBI agents Ed Curran and John McClure. They were given the job of posing as CIA officers and running the CIA's counter-espionage unit while covertly looking for anyone else who may be operating for the Russians. After launching their investigation at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, the agents discovered that there were over 300 officers that had failed a polygraph lie detector test, something that the CIA had overlooked. Immediately, the agents began retesting every officer that had failed, stating that the officer would not be leaving the room until they got to the bottom of why they failed in the first place. Thankfully, most of the officers had failed for simple reasons, such as bending the rules when it came to their operational work. This meant that the agents were quickly able to narrow down their original pool of 300 suspects to 6. One of the 6 particularly stood out. This was Harold James Nicholson. Nicholson had also failed a polygraph during his career. He was also one of the instructors responsible for training undercover officers how to infiltrate countries such as Russia, making him the perfect double agent. Upon directing their investigation towards Nicholson, the agents discovered a leave request that had been submitted by Nicholson in order to go on vacation in Singapore. Seeing this as an opportunity to gain information, the decision was made to allow Nicholson to make it the trip. Once he landed in Singapore, Nicholson was immediately placed under surveillance by the FBI and the Singaporean authorities. It was quickly realized that Nicholson was performing a number of counter-surveillance techniques in order to determine if he was being followed or not. On the 3rd day of his trip, while still being extremely cautious, Nicholson was observed getting into a blacked-out limo, which was quickly followed by the agents. To their disbelief, the limo stopped right outside the Russian embassy. Nicholson jumped out and made his way up the steps and through the front doors. This was a huge development for the FBI, catapulting Nicholson from person of interest to prime suspect in seconds. Upon arrival back in the United States, the FBI made Nicholson their #1 priority. His house was bugged and a full-time surveillance team was attached to him. Along with building a case, the FBI also had to focus on damage control in order to limit the amount of work he could do for the Russians. Because demoting him would tip him off, they had Nicholson promoted to branch chief in counterterrorism. Here they placed CIA officer John McGuire as the deputy chief of the unit that was now being run by Nicholson. McGuire's job was to monitor all of Nicholson's movements inside Langley, where the surveillance team couldn't watch him. Over time, he gained Nicholson's trust over shared operations in Langley and beers at the local bar after work. McGuire was able to keep eyes on Nicholson throughout most of the day except for one place, his office. And so the decision was made to place a very small camera in one of the ceiling tiles in Nicholson's office, a decision that would prove incredibly important later on. The next step was to gain access to Nicholson's van with hopes of finding something that indicated what his current work for the Russians was. They achieved this by having the CIA send Nicholson away on a work trip and had him driven to the airport to ensure that his minivan was left in the parking lot of Langley. Once darkness fell and the parking lot emptied out, a flatbed truck quickly darted inside, scooping up the Mini and driving it to an undisclosed garage nearby. After searching the minivan, they discovered he had left his laptop behind, but no one could have imagined what they would find on it. It was discovered that over the past few years, he had used his position as an instructor to pass on the names of the undercover officers he had trained to infiltrate Russia, making this the biggest internal security blunder in CIA history. After this discovery, the vehicle was quickly returned back to the exact parking spot he had left it. The next breakthrough wouldn't come until October 1996, when McGuire informed the FBI agents of unusual activity from Nicholson. He told them that while in the minivan with Nicholson, he had suddenly increased his speed in an apparent attempt to detect any surveillance. He then made a sudden stop at a post office, claiming that he was a stamp collector and wanted to get his hands on some rare ones that he had just found there. This, however, did not fool McGuire or the FBI. In light of this recent development, the FBI increased their surveillance on Nicholson. A few days after the reported behavior, one of the follow teams observed Nicholson placing a letter in a mailbox. The letter was quickly retrieved, and it was discovered that it was a postcard being mailed to Romania. In it showed his intention to once again travel overseas to meet with his Russian handler.
Hello, old friend. I hope it is possible that you will be my guest for a ski holiday this year on 23-24 November. A bit early, but it would fit my schedule nicely. I am fine and all is well. Hope you are the same and can accept my invitation.
This recent development, along with new evidence that had been gathered using the hidden camera inside Nicholson's office ceiling, which had observed him photographing classified documents, gave the agents all the information they needed. He was going to be traveling to meet with the Russians, and he would have classified documents in his possession. It was time to move in. On November 16, 1996, Harold Nicholson made his way into Dulles International Airport and through security. FBI agents were everywhere, disguised as everything from passengers to ground crew. They all waited in anticipation, waiting until the final moment to ensure they had all the evidence to prove Nicholson was going to get on that plane with classified documents. Finally, as he made his way out onto the tarmac and towards the plane, just feet away from the aircraft steps, two FBI agents disguised as ground crew approached Nicholson, informing him that his reign as a double agent was now over. On February 28, 1997, Nicholson reached a plea deal with the prosecution and was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. This was the most senior CIA officer ever to be charged with espionage. While this was yet another embarrassment for the CIA, with this being the second spy caught in the last 3 years, this did demonstrate that the efforts to weed out any more spies inside the CIA had worked, and was deemed a huge success for the FBI and the agents involved with the investigation. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what you would like to see next.